They hid spy cameras right in the bedroom I was paying rent for, then called me unstable and dangerous and tried to kick me out so they could put tourists in there for Airbnb. I almost believed I was starting to lose my mind until the day I walked into that eviction hearing, gripping the building inspector's report and looking my son-in-law straight in the eye. My name is Marion. I'm 67 and I've been a widow for 7 years. I'm not so old I forget my way home, and I'm not so weak I can't boil a kettle or change a flower pot by myself. I've just slowed down. My knees creak when the weather turns, and my arms aren't as strong as they used to be. I have to hold a can a little farther away to read the label. But my mind is still clear. I still remember the names of every regular at the bakery where I work part-time. I remember every grandchild's birthday. I remember which one hates onions and which one will eat pickles out of the jar if you turn your back for 1 second. Our old house, the 2-story at the end of the street with the red maples, was sold after my husband died. Part of that money went to pay off hospital bills. The rest went into the bank. I never wanted to be a burden to anybody. A few years ago, my daughter Lori called me and said, "Mom, come live closer to us. We fixed up the basement. You can rent it from us. You'll be close to the kids, and you won't have to shovel snow or worry about the sidewalks." Her husband Tyler added, "Yeah, Mom, you'll just pay rent like anyone else. We'll have a proper lease, so nobody owes anybody. Our house will be your house, too." It sounded reasonable. I moved out of the little apartment I was renting and packed only what I really loved: my teapot, a few framed photos, my stack of worn-out cookbooks, some potted plants. Lori and Tyler's basement apartment was cute. There was a separate entrance out to the backyard, a little kitchenette, a small living room, and a bedroom with a high window that looked up at the trunk of a tree whose leaves turned flaming red in the fall. I hung a photo of my husband on the wall and spread the blanket I'd knitted over the armchair. Just like that, it felt like home. In the mornings, I got up earlier than everyone upstairs. I turned on the kettle, listened to the water bubble, and let the smell of instant coffee mix with the damp earth smell from my plants by the window. I buttered my toast slowly, turned on the radio, and listened to the news. Around 7, I'd put on my coat and hat, grab my canvas bag, and walk 2 blocks to the bakery where I worked 4 days a week. The job wasn't hard. Slicing bread, wiping tables, chatting with regulars. They called me Miss Marion. Some of them didn't know how old I was. They just said I was older but sharp. In the afternoons, I'd often hear little feet stomping over my head, and then my granddaughter Ellie would pop her head down the stairs. "Nana, can I come down? I want the cookies you hide." She was the light of my day. Lori stayed busy. Work, school pickups, dinner. Sometimes she'd sneak downstairs, wrap her arms around me from behind and whisper, "Having you close makes my life so much easier, Mom. This husband and this child are driving me crazy." Tyler was different. He was polite. Every time he saw me, it was, "Hi, Mom," with a half smile. But there was always something calculating in his eyes. I have seen men like him my whole life. Their mouths say, "Let me handle it, Mom," but their hands are always holding a spreadsheet. One fall evening, I was at the sink washing dishes. Upstairs, I heard the couch squeak. Tyler had come home, and Lori's voice floated down. "You hungry? Mom's downstairs." Then his voice came through the floor vents. "Mom, everything okay down there? Remember, the basement is damp. Keep that dehumidifier on. If there's a fire down there, we're all gone too." I paused, dried my hands on my old dish towel, and called back. "I've been turning off my stove before I leave the house for 40 years, Tyler. I lived in my own home for decades without burning it down." He laughed a little, that tight laugh people use when they pretend to be patient with a child. I'm just saying, with age, we need to be more careful. And honestly, Mom, this basement would make a killing on Airbnb. They've got a big conference coming up downtown, and every place is booked. If you'd move into assisted living now with proper care, we could rent this out short term. You'd get more help, and we'd have more income. Win-win. I felt my stomach sink. I didn't hate Tyler. I understand that houses and money make people start calculating, but the way he talked about me, like a piece of furniture that could be moved to optimize profit, made my skin crawl. I don't need anyone to wash me yet, I answered, trying to keep my voice light. I can still bathe, cook, and go to work. I pay my rent on time. You don't have to worry about me. He went quiet for a second, then said, I'm just thinking ahead. If something happens down there, the insurance company is going to ask me questions, not you. At the time, I thought he was just talking. I had no idea he was already laying the first bricks in a path to shove me out of my own space. One afternoon, I came home from work with a paper bag of leftover rolls the bakery owner gave me. My phone buzzed on the table. An email from Tyler. Mom, look at these pictures. I opened it. A string of photos filled the small screen, an outlet with a black scorch mark crawling up the wall, a tall candle set right next to a thin curtain, a mountain of clothes piled around a heater, an extension cord snaking across the floor into the kitchen. Under the photos, he'd written, See, Mom, this is what I was talking about. This is serious. If a city inspector sees this, they'll force us to move you out. I don't want it to come to that. I sat down hard in my chair, my hands shaking as I zoomed in on each picture. The outlet looked like the same style as the ones in my place, but I'd never seen that burnt mark. I don't use candles anymore. Since my husband died, open flames in the house make me nervous. My laundry is always folded or hung up. I hate tangled cords. I'll stop mid-conversation to untangle them. It felt like looking at a room that was mine and not mine at the same time. Familiar furniture, but someone had moved things around and staged a little play while I wasn't there. That night, Lori came down with a bowl of soup. Eat something, Mom. You look pale. I handed her my phone. Look at this. Tyler just sent it. Be honest with me, Lori. Has my room ever looked like that? Her face tightened as she scrolled. She bit her lip. I don't know. Tyler told me not to show you. He thought it would upset you. When were these taken? I asked. Where was I? You were at work. He went down to check the dehumidifier. He said he found it like that, so he took pictures. I don't know why, but when she said that, the tears that jumped into my eyes weren't from hurt. They were from a rising, crawling fear. Someone had gone into my room while I was gone, moved my things, taken pictures, and sent them to some attorney or management company, using my room, my name. A few days later, I opened the mailbox at the back door and found a big envelope, Notice to Vacate, 30 days to move out. Reason: unsafe occupancy, documented fire hazards, and hoarding tendencies. Tenant appears mentally unstable and non-compliant with safety advice. Mentally unstable. Those words were like nails driven into my forehead. I sat down on the chair, the paper trembling in my hands. Overhead, Ellie ran back and forth, her laughter just as bright as ever. She had no idea her Nana, the one she climbed into bed with for cartoons, was being pushed out of the house by her own father. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there staring up at the bedroom ceiling. The light was off, but I could see the round shadow of the smoke detector on the painted plaster. It sat there like a shut eye. That was the first night I heard the tiny click in the dark. And that was when the old woman's instinct I've carried through nearly 7 decades spoke up. Something is very wrong here, Marion. After I got that notice, I started doing things I never thought I'd have to do. I wrote down every little thing in a notebook. What time I turned the stove on, what time I turned it off, which lights I flipped, what setting the heater was on. I was basically building a case for someone, maybe for myself, that I still remembered, still controlled my own life, that I wasn't unstable. But the more I wrote, the bigger my nagging feeling grew. Not about myself, but about what was happening around me. I began to notice odd little changes in my room. No one but me lived there, but the room wasn't exactly the same each day. The armchair would be an inch off from the dent in the rug. The towel hanging over the shower bar would be folded in the way Lori does it, not my way. Once, I was sure I'd left my purse by the bed. In the morning, it was under the desk. If I were as unstable as Tyler claimed, I would have shrugged and said, I must have forgotten. But I'd been a school bookkeeper for 30 years. I could feel a $1 discrepancy in a spreadsheet. You think I wouldn't notice my chair inching across the carpet? One Saturday morning, my neighbor Jean came over and knocked. Jean is about my age, lives across the street, always smells like apple pie. Marion, I heard, she said softly as I opened the door. Lori called me. Are you okay? I set the kettle on and had her sit at my little table. The smell of chamomile rose from our cups, but my throat still felt tight. Jean, I need you to be honest with me, I said, my voice low. Have you ever seen my place look like the disaster they're describing? She didn't even hesitate. No, every time I come over, it's cleaner than my house. The only thing I've seen is... She paused. I've seen Tyler go around back to your basement door when you're at work. I thought he was fixing something. You've got one of those doorbell cameras, right? I asked, remembering. She nodded. I shot upright and dragged my chair under the detector. My heart was thumping. I climbed up, one hand on the back of the chair, and reached up to the device. It was cold under my fingers. I twisted it gently, expecting it to be firmly fixed like always. This time it rotated a little with a faint click. In that moment, I saw it clearly. Right in the middle of that white plastic circle, there was a tiny dark dot, just a little bigger than a pinhead, slightly recessed. An eye. My foot slipped and I dropped back down into the armchair. My heart was pounding in my ears, like trucks roaring over a bridge. The thought of being watched, right there in my bedroom, where I changed clothes, where I cried alone, was so filthy and cold it made my skin crawl. I don't think I slept at all. I sat up half the night with the notice to vacate in front of me, the smoke detector's shadow on the wall looking like an eye that refused to blink. The next morning, I put on my thick coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, grabbed my canvas bag, and walked straight to the public library. I went to the computer corner and sat down. I typed slowly with stiff fingers. City Building Safety Hotline. Tenant Fire Hazard Complaint. Elderly Legal Aid. Each word on that screen felt like another little stake I drove into the ground to haul myself out of the pit Tyler had dug under my feet. At the information desk, the young librarian leaned over. Can I print something for you, ma'am? She asked. I need a phone number, I said. Who you call when somebody says your place is unsafe and you want an inspector to come check for real. I need someone who isn't on my son-in-law's side. Her face softened. I understand. Here. She printed a flyer. This is the hotline for the city's building and safety department. And this is a flyer for a legal aid group that helps seniors. Call them. They're good. That afternoon, I went home, sat at my little table, and held the paper with those numbers on it. I took a deep breath and dialed. A deep, slightly gravelly male voice answered. Daniels, a building inspector who'd been working for the city for over 30 years. I told him everything. I told him about the photos, about the little changes in my room, about the smoke detector with an eye, about the notice that called me mentally unstable. He listened. Every now and then he just said, mm-hmm, or, I hear you. Finally he said, Ms. Marion, if there's a fire hazard complaint on file for your address, we are required to inspect it. I'll come out. I won't give them a lot of warning. Can you be home on Wednesday? I looked at my schedule. Wednesday was my day off from the bakery. I'll be here, I said. I'll be waiting. That Wednesday, the sky was low and gray, clouds hanging so low they almost brushed the rooftops. I stood in my tiny kitchen, wrapping my hands around a mug of hot tea, but my fingers were still cold. Around 10, I heard a vehicle stop out front, car doors closing, men's voices. I opened the back door. A man with salt and pepper hair in a thick coat, holding a briefcase and a toolbox, stood there. The badge on his chest read D. Daniels, Building Inspector. "Ms. Marion?" he asked, holding out his hand. "I'm Daniels. Does the upstairs know I'm here yet?" Before I could answer, the front door opened and slammed. Tyler came around the side of the house, scowling. "What's going on?" he demanded. "I didn't call an inspector." Daniels calmly pulled a piece of paper out of his case. "The city received a complaint about fire hazards at this address, specifically in the downstairs rental. Once that complaint is filed, we are obligated to inspect. I need to see the rental unit and, if necessary, the main electrical system." Tyler forced a laugh. "No need. I already talked to my mother-in-law. We sorted it out." Daniels looked him dead in the eye. "You're welcome to talk to your attorney about the complaint, but the inspection is my job. If you obstruct, that goes in the report." I stood behind Daniels thinking, I have never seen anyone talk to Tyler like that. He hesitated, then threw up his hands. "Fine, go. I've got nothing to hide." We went into my basement apartment. Daniel stopped in the doorway and swept his eyes around. Clean counters, empty sink, no candles, neatly coiled cords. He pulled out a small notebook and scratched something down. "Miss Marion, show me that smoke detector," he said. I dragged my chair over. He stepped up on it, twisted the device, and popped it off the ceiling. He opened it up. I saw wires, a little circuit board, a battery. He pulled on his reading glasses and peered in. "Mm-hmm," he said. He turned and held it out so I could see. "This is not a city-installed or inspected detector. And right here," he pointed to the center, "this is a lens. It's a camera. They sell these all over the internet. People put them in fake smoke detectors so nobody notices." The floor might as well have dropped out from under me. But Daniels didn't stop. He went around the room, scanning every outlet, every corner, every alarm. He took down 2 more fake detectors. One outlet by my bed got pulled out of the wall to reveal a tiny camera hidden behind the faceplate. He laid them all out on my kitchen table like evidence. "Do you know who installed these?" he asked. I stared at those white plastic shells. Every one of them looked like a little eye. "All I know is, it wasn't me," I said, my voice rough. Tyler leaned against the wall, jaw tight but tone still light. "I only put those in because I was worried she might fall and no one would know," he said. "I forgot to tell her. I was just worried about her safety." Daniels raised his eyebrows. "You installed hidden cameras in your tenant's bedroom without her knowledge, then filed a complaint calling her mentally unstable," he said. "Are you familiar with this state's privacy laws and landlord-tenant statutes?" Tyler went silent. Sweat was beading on his forehead. "And those fire hazard photos?" Daniels turned to me. "Do you have them?" My hand shook as I handed him my phone. He looked at each picture, then squinted up at my walls and outlets. "This outlet," he said, tapping the photo, "doesn't match the wall layout here. And this one with the old wall heater and clothes piled around it. There is no heater like that in this basement. These were taken somewhere else, or staged." That afternoon, I went over to Jean's. She pulled up her doorbell camera app and scrolled back through days of footage. We sat shoulder to shoulder on her couch, 2 old ladies bent over a small screen. "Here," she said, her finger stopping. "You were at work that morning, right? On the video, there I was, leaving the house with my canvas bag, locking the gate." A little while later, Tyler appeared, carrying a black bag, glancing up and down the street before slipping around back to my basement door. 10, 15 minutes passed. Then he came up again. The black bag was gone. Now he was carrying a candle holder and a coil of extension cord. Jean sent the video to Daniels, who put it on a USB and tucked it beside the fake detectors. "I'll write up my report," he told me. "I'll send a copy to housing court. You'll be getting a notice about the eviction hearing. Call this legal aid group." He handed me another flyer. "They'll assign you an attorney or advocate. You did the right thing calling us." For the first time in weeks, I felt my spine straighten a little. Not because everything was fixed, but because someone who didn't share my blood or my bank account, had told me I wasn't crazy. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Called inspector, check, court hearing, pending." Still remember my bullet points. The court date came faster than I expected. City Hall looked like every government building on a gray morning. Square tiles, the smell of old paper and cheap coffee, the sound of heels and boots on the floor. I sat on a plastic bench in the hallway, hugging an old folder stuffed with my lease, proof of rent payments, printed emails from Tyler, and a copy of the notice. On the corner of the folder, I'd stuck a little note. "Marion, not unstable." Tyler stood down the hall, pressed into his dress shirt and tie, holding a stack of papers. He talked into his phone in a low voice, glancing over at me every now and then. Lori sat near him, eyes red, fingers twisting her purse strap. When I looked her way, she turned her gaze down like a child who knows she's done something wrong. "Ms. Marion?" a familiar voice said. I looked up. Daniel stood there, uniform neat, old briefcase in hand. Next to him was a black woman in a simple suit who introduced herself as Sandra, an attorney from the senior legal aid office. "I'll be sitting with you," Sandra said. "You just tell the truth like you told us. Don't let anyone make you feel like you imagined this. Don't let anyone make you feel like you imagined this." That sentence felt like a soft but strong rope tied around my waist. We were called into a small hearing room. No jury, no big drama like on TV. Just a long table, two smaller tables on either side, and an older judge up on a low platform with reading glasses perched on his nose, flipping through a file. "Case Tyler and Lori Johnson, landlords versus Marion Hale. Tenant petition to evict due to safety concerns," he read. "Present, landlords, tenant, city building inspector, legal representative for tenant." Tyler went first. He stood up and talked smoothly, like he'd practiced in front of a mirror. "Your Honor, we were only trying to keep my mother-in-law, my tenant, safe. She lives in the basement apartment of our home. Lately, she's begun to forget things. She's left pots on the stove. She leaves clutter around. I took pictures of some of the hazards. Candles by curtains, scorched outlets, piles of clothes around heaters. I filed a complaint with the city because I was worried that if a fire started, it would kill our whole family. She's refused every suggestion to move somewhere with proper care. We don't think she's stable enough to live alone anymore, so we had no choice but to give her notice. But more serious than that, Daniels went on, I found 4 hidden recording devices in the rental space. One disguised as a smoke detector, the others as mini cameras in outlets and room corners. Ms. Hale was unaware of these devices. I removed them, photographed them, and recorded their serial numbers. Those photos are attached on pages 4 through 8. He set a clear evidence bag on the table with one of the eyes inside. Under the fluorescent lights, it looked like any other piece of plastic. To me, it was proof of every sleepless night under its gaze. The judge picked it up, turned it over slowly, then looked at Tyler. "Were you aware of these devices?" he asked. Tyler swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. "I bought them because I was worried about my mother-in-law. I thought if she fell in the bedroom and nobody knew, I just forgot to tell her. I was only thinking of her safety." Sandra rose calmly. "Your Honor," she said, every word clear. "Under state law, A landlord may not install video recording devices in a tenant's private living space, especially a bedroom or bathroom, without informed written consent. There is no such consent here. To install these devices and then file a complaint labeling the tenant as mentally unstable raises serious questions about harassment and invasion of privacy. The judge nodded slowly. Duly noted. Sandra sat back down and placed her hand near mine on the table, just close enough for me to feel the comfort. "And the fire hazard photos?" the judge asked. Daniels pulled out copies. "I compared them," he said. "Several do not match the layout of the basement. For example, this photo shows an old wall heater with clothes piled around it. There is no such heater in Ms. Hale's unit. I also obtained video from Ms. Jean Smith's doorbell camera, showing Mr. Tyler Johnson entering the basement with a bag while the tenant is away, then exiting with candles and extension cords. I believe the scenes in these photos were staged to support the complaint." Jean was called up. She walked slowly, hand brushing the table for balance, but her voice was solid. "I've lived across from them 15 years, she said. "Marion's place is always tidy. I have never seen a candle by a curtain or cord strung everywhere. I have seen Tyler go into her basement when she's not home. My doorbell camera caught it one day. That's the video the inspector is talking about." Sandra handed over the USB. A clerk plugged it in, and the footage appeared on a small wall-mounted monitor. We all watched, me leaving with my bag, locking the door. A little while later, Tyler walking up with that black bag, slipping around the side of the house. Minutes later, him coming back out, now carrying a candle holder and a coil of cord. The frame froze on his face as he glanced nervously toward the street. Lori clapped a hand over her mouth. I heard a little sob escape her. "Thank you, Ms. Smith," the judge said. The air in that little room felt heavy. There were no more words like unstable, hoarder, unsafe floating around. Instead, there were solid things on the table: cameras, a written report, a video. Finally, the judge took off his glasses and set his pen down. "I've heard enough," he said. The landlord's petition to evict is based on alleged safety issues which the city inspector does not substantiate. On the contrary, we have evidence the landlord installed hidden recording devices in the tenant's unit and likely staged hazardous conditions to support their complaint. He turned and looked straight at me. "Ms. Hale, you are not mentally unstable. You did exactly the right thing by calling the city. The eviction petition is denied in full. You have the right to remain under the terms of your lease." Then he looked at Tyler. "As for Mr. Johnson, I am referring this matter to the prosecutor's office for review of potential privacy violations and tenant harassment. I strongly suggest you consult a criminal attorney." Tyler's mouth opened like he wanted to argue, then snapped shut. The color drained out of his face. For the first time since all this started, I saw not the confidence of a man who thinks he holds all the cards, but bare, simple panic. The judge tapped his gavel. Hearing adjourned. I barely remember standing up. I do remember Sandra turning to me and smiling. "You did great," she said. "Now let's talk about next steps." Out in the hallway, Lori rushed over and grabbed me. She clung to me, shoulders shaking. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. I was so stupid. I thought Tyler was just being cautious. I let him do this to you." I patted her back. My heart softened and hardened at the same time. I love my daughter, but I love myself too. "Lori, I'm still your mom," I said quietly. "But I'm not going to live in a house where someone put cameras in my bedroom. Do you understand?" She cried harder and nodded. Daniels came over and shook my hand. "You know how many seniors never call us?" he said. "They think they're wrong or slipping, so they just accept whatever the landlord says. You didn't. That's why we're here." My eyes burned again, but this time it wasn't from shame. "Thank you," I managed. Thank you for believing an old woman. I didn't stay in Lori's basement much longer. Legally, I could have, but having the right to keep sleeping in a room where I'd been filmed every night, that wasn't a right I wanted to exercise. Sandra helped me apply to a city housing program for low-income seniors. A few months later, I moved into a small apartment on the third floor of an old red brick building. It had an elevator, emergency pull cords in the bathroom, and a manager named Maria who always had a tin of cookies on her desk. The new place is smaller than the basement, but it's brighter. My window looks out on a row of maple trees that turn blazing red in the fall. I rehung my husband's photo, draped my knitted blanket over the armchair, stacked my books on a shelf. The smoke detectors on the ceiling were installed by the city and have inspection stickers on them. For the first few nights, I still found myself staring up at them, searching for little black dots. But slowly, they stopped looking like eyes and started looking like what they are, quiet little guardians that mind their own business. Lori and Ellie still visit. Tyler doesn't. He's busy with his own stuff now, lawyers and hearings. I don't sit around wishing him jail or ruin. I just want things to go the way the law says they should. If the law says he's earned something, he'll get it. I don't carry his consequences on my shoulders anymore. One afternoon, Ellie was sitting on my new floor, sticking heart stickers on the wall. "Nana, your new place is small, but I like it," she said. "The elevator's more fun than our stairs." I laughed and pulled a small piece of paper out of my pocket, taping it to the fridge. On it, I'd written the building inspector hotline, the legal aid number, Jean's number, and Sandra's. "What's that?" Ellie asked. "That's who Nana calls if anyone ever says she's unstable again," I said, half joking, half not. So I remember there are people who will listen to me and check the facts, not just take the younger person's word because they're louder. She didn't really get it. She just giggled and added a sticker to the corner of the paper. But I got it. I understood that those numbers were another kind of safety net this world has strung up for people like me. People who are easy to label and easy to shove aside with a single cold piece of paper. That night, after we finished a simple dinner, tomato soup and bread, I sat down in my armchair and opened my old notebook. On the last page, I wrote, "Marion, 67, not unstable, knows which number to call, trusts her own eyes and her own heart." Outside my window, winter was coming. The streetlights clicked on, spilling yellow light across the damp pavement. I could hear a TV in the next apartment, someone laughing, someone knocking on a door. This city isn't soft. I know that. But in that moment, one thing was crystal clear. I am no longer stuck in a room with silent eyes watching me. I get to choose where I sleep, who sees me, and who doesn't. If you've listened this far and you recognized yourself somewhere in here, if someone has told you you're unstable or not reliable just because you're older and slower, before you believe them, do what I did. Take another look at your own room. Take another look at the eyes on your ceiling. Call someone who doesn't live above you, doesn't collect your rent. This world still has people like Daniels, like Sandra, like Jean, and people like me who refuse to be evicted from our own lives by one piece of paper and a handful of lies. And if your life is peaceful right now, if you're just hearing my story from a warm room, keep it in your heart. Someday you might see another Marion clutching a notice in a hallway, and you'll know what to say. Maybe it's something as simple as what Daniels told me. "You're not crazy. You did the right thing." Sometimes that's all it takes to pull someone back from the edge.